We're chatting today with Chris and Neil from Peach Pit with a new album coming out on Friday. How long has it been? How long have you been waiting?
We had this album basically finished since January, so a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about it. I mean, I understand that you actually went in to record it with very few songs ready, which sounds insane to me.
We had lots of songs like kind of like half baked, but we didn't have them really finished. And the truth of the matter is it's a combination of us having done this in the past where some songs we've kind of come in and written them in the studio, some of our like most favorite songs too. We've done this before with like songs like Shampoo Bottles and stuff where we kind of like made the song while we were in the studio together. We hadn't really played it too much. And also we watched the Beatles documentary that Peter Jackson made where they wrote like Let It Be in the studio. And so we thought that would be a good idea for us to try doing. uh which anyway, didn't work out quite the way we wanted, so we sort of abandoned ship and then came back like 6 months later with like way more material ready to go. And yeah, it worked out. We finished a record.
So I guess that adjustment wound up being a very good thing, being able to go back and rework songs and ideas.
Totally, for sure, absolutely. Yeah, it was awesome for us. And that's the nice thing about being in a band and like being your own boss is you can just decide to take another 6 months to work on the record and
Yeah.
and write more songs for it.
And
So
you're
there's
not going to
always,
lose your job. Yeah, no,
yeah, you
it's
won't lose your job. So
What did you guys get
uh,
together? You were in high school when the band started, right?
we weren't in high school anymore. We were kind of just out of high school. We were like in our late teens, early 20s kind of thing. Like we probably started playing together when we were like maybe 20, I would say. Maybe Chris, you were 20, I was 21, something like that.
Yeah, we had
Um,
kind of become friends because right after high school, I moved to the neighborhood that Neil grew up in, and like we kept seeing each other every time we would go to like drink beers on the government dock at night. Like we would run into each other, and we were kind of
yeah.
realizing we like doing all the same things, so started hanging out and also like both playing music.
Yeah, I remember it being kind of weird because it was like making a new friend and like I don't know, just like where we grew up, I feel like you kind of just like had the same friends your whole entire life. And then when you're like in your early 20s and you keep running into the same person, it was like, yeah, it was like, whoa, are we becoming friends? Like, I don't know. It was, it was a cool time in our life.
Yeah.
Were you already working with other bands or in other projects?
I was in like a folk band because when we were in high school, Mumford and Sons, for example, was like the peak of like all bands at the time. And so, yeah, I was in a folk band. We were like banjo, acoustic guitar, and upright bass. And Chris, you and Pete you guys were in your own little band, kind of. You guys played at
No.
you guys played at the winter ball or whatever.
Yeah, we played at our like what would be the equivalent of your prom, Chris. So yeah, we had our we sorry, that was the doorbell. We had our times like playing live, but had never been in a project where we were writing original music or anything like that. So it was a new experience for us, and Neil had kind of been through it before, so he knew kind of knew what to expect as far as getting things going.
Yeah. What is it about the Vancouver music scene that enabled you to all find success?
There was just a
Good
really
question.
amazing group of people putting on like DIY underground shows at all these different sort of like not really venues. Like there was a place called the Matador that was just somebody's basement at their house that they rented. And then like there was a lot of examples of places like that in Vancouver. So there was always opportunities for us to play shows. And like I remember the first time there was this production company called Trash City Productions that was ran by a girl who was like 15 or 16. She was a high school student putting on these shows. Kind of crazy how young she was for doing it. And I remember like I heard about their shows or had been to a few of them and really wanted to play one. I sent her an email and she got right back to me and was like, yeah, you guys can play. And it was like, yeah, it was still like a milestone moment for me thinking about like kind of getting into that sort of scene in Vancouver and being able to play shows. So that was like the biggest thing for us was just that there were so many shows you could play. We played
Yeah.
all the time. We were playing like every week. So
Do you remember that moment when we finally got a paycheck and we're like, oh, this might be our new job. Like we can do this.
I don't know if I quite remember a moment where it was like, okay, we're full time. This is crazy. But I do remember the first time we got like offered $700 to play a gig, and it was like out on Vancouver Island. We had to travel 5 hours to get there. We were just like $700, and then spent it all just getting there and like staying there and everything. But yeah, that was it was funny to think back because I remember that feeling of, oh my gosh, I can't believe someone's paying us this much to do it. And also coming back like with less money than we left with, but thinking it was.
Yeah, do you guys remember that I got super drunk at that? After we played, I got super drunk and I was talking to the person who put on the show and I was like, we've never got paid $700 for a show before. And
yeah,
she was like, wow, you must have a good agent, I guess, then.
Yeah, I think
like,
she was a little bit like, I'm the idiot. I'm the first idiot to pay these guys $700 to play a show. Dang it. But good deal now looking back in hindsight.
Yeah. Did you think at the time you were worth it?
No, I think
we were worth
we
what
conned
people would
them.
pay us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we felt like we tricked them.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you about data. I'm curious about something. One of the things I think that the world is challenged with is finding a sense of worth in the amount of likes and shares that they get through social media. And I'm sure that you go through that as well, but you're also in a band. So it's not only the band's social platforms, you're also looking at streams and sales metrics and tickets sold and all of that stuff. And I'm wondering how much you look at that data or obsess at that data.
Yeah, it's so sad. I think about it all the time. It's something that I really, really wish I could not focus on, but it's so hard not to because it's so in your face all the time. And like you really just like value things based on how much they stream, how many likes like an Instagram reel gets versus it doesn't, how many tickets you sell. It's really sad because it takes the joy out of things a lot, I would say. I don't know, Chris, what about you?
But yeah, I mean, that is the world we live in. I definitely, I don't know. I think everyone has their own journey with it a little bit. Like, I remember early days of the band, especially like Spotify now just, says like, oh, you have this like 1.1 million monthly listeners or whatever, but it used to be an exact number. I remember every day just looking at that number and seeing it change and just like, oh, if the number was higher than it was the day previous, that was a good feeling. And if it was lower, it was a bad feeling. And eventually just realizing that like this number is kind of arbitrary in a way, but it was controlling my emotions so much. So I think we're better at like not looking at some metrics like that these days, but especially around album release time, we've worked so hard on this record. So we want a lot of people to see it and we want them to be engaging with it. But yeah, at the end of the day, you only have so much control over these things. So yeah.
The sad thing about it too is that, when you're starting out, for example, and you get to like 20,000 monthly listeners, you're excited about it, right? And then now you get to like 2 million monthly listeners and it has gone down since the last record. And so you're upset by that, which is like so skewed and such a weird way to look at it. So it's just kind of like when you focus on those sort of things, you never really get to like enjoy things fully, which is a bummer.
Does any of that impact your creative process? I mean, are you thinking about the math when you're writing new songs or working on projects?
No, I wouldn't say so, actually. Sorry,
No, I don't think
I had
so.
to get up because my cat jumped into my window and this just was super sketchy. I'll let her do that.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think we think about that when we're writing or recording. All we think about is just at the moment whether or not we like what we're making, whether we think the song is fun to listen to, fun to play. It's more of just like based on like how we feel about the song, than the numbers or any sort of thing like that. Because those are really hard to predict, I would say. So we just focus on doing what we've always done, which is just write songs that we like.
Well, the 3 songs that have been released are all fantastic. The video for Magpie is awesome. It's also a fantastic song. And so we're gonna get the album on Friday. Super excited about it.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks,
I appreciate that.
Thanks, guys, and congratulations on the release.
All right,
Yeah,
take care.
appreciate it, man.